I've been making like the I don't know, a few of my most recent videos. I've made them in portrait mode, vertical. So the reason that I've done that is because the word okay as it's spelled okay. Um, so okay is a little man. Um, there's a lot more to language and the letter and alphabet and all that kind of stuff than what they teach people in school. Um, but so um, the K is for Aries, and uh, the reason the so it's a little man. See, it's okay, okay, man, right? So when people fall down, that somebody will say, "Are you okay?" Because they're falling down, they're laying on their side, um, or on their back or in their stomach or whatever. But they're laying like this instead of standing like that. So, and that's because Aries is the god of war and death and stuff, and so people be like that during war and death. But um, anyways, I wasn't gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it. War and death, war, death, WARD, right? So the Mormon Church has wards, the state has wards, um, the hospital has wards because they send the birth certificate to the state. but um, so wards. But anyways, it all has to do with um, the false god Ares. Anyways, so I've been making the videos um, vertical because uh, I just didn't want to have the make it in the anyways. I'm annoyed with the idea of people um, claiming their version of God is true when their version of God is a God of animal and human sacrifice. And uh, in the case with Mormons, directs the leaders of their church to hoard up billions of dollars instead of make sure that our human family has the things that they need to survive without suffering. Um, but then I could say it all goes back on this whole world. But this whole world is fake anyways. That stuff that Elon Musk says and all these scientists and physicists and all that kind of stuff that say, you know, oh the likeliness of us being in base reality is like zero, is like almost nothing. Millions to one that we're in base reality. So the likeliness that we're in a simulation is the um, most possible reality. Um, that's true. I didn't want to accept that at first, um, but I've seen too many things, and over the past, it's going on close to maybe I don't know, several weeks, almost a month, maybe, whatever. I hate saying the word weeks because it sounds weak, um, but um, it's gotten increasingly intense. Um, and my life is being manipulated in ways that I'm not even going to try and explain it because if I were listening to it, I would say it sounds like crazy talk. So I'm not going to try and explain something so that someone goes, that sounds crazy to me. Um, but then you would also have to say that, you know, a bunch of people that, the expression, some people go, well, there's people smarter than you. Now, I don't think there's anybody smarter than me in certain things, but not in some things. But, anyways, but Um, there's people smarter than you that say it's a simulation. They've got all the science and the math to prove it. Um, you know, they say now that they find uh, computer code writ into the fabric of space. So um, anyways, and then some people will say, well, that computer code could be God's computer code in space. Um, sure it could, you know, but it's a manipulated reality. So what version of God is it? Because the version of God that Christians, Judaism, Islam, the gods, Krishna and Vishnu and all these, they're all gods of death and sacrifice and war and violence um, so I don't want to hear any of that crap about your version of God. Your version of God gives a true God a bad name. Um, your version of God is disgusting, and so I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to listen to any of that. But anyways, what I've noticed though over the past 15 years that I've tried to teach people that, you know, they want the world to be a world of death and sacrifice. So they taught you that God is a God of death and sacrifice, and they want you to kill animals to eat because they want you to have a diet of death. Diet, diet, diet of death. They want you to kill things because um, natural food that grows, that's a plant, um, because it doesn't need or want to run away because it doesn't have a brain because it's just a plant, right? That was made to continuously regenerate and provide food in abundance for you. Um, so I eat, you can eat I use this example a bunch because tomatoes have a bunch of seeds in them. You have one tomato, you can take just one or two seeds out, or you can take all the seeds out. But if you take only just one seed out of a tomato, you can use that one seed, plant it in the ground, and grow dozens or even, depending on the type of tomato, dozens or even hundreds of the same thing from one seed, from one of the tomatoes on one of the plants. Now, one plant has bunches of tomatoes, and each of those tomatoes has bunches of seeds. The design for food was for abundance, so that it would be, and it was provided for everyone free. But you've taken it and hoarded it up and put it onto um, corporate owned farms, and there's no natural food just growing around in nature anymore. You can't find it. All the corporations have gathered it up to make the cost of living instead of the gift of living. And everybody seems to be fine with that. They say, oh, it's a free market. What in the market is free? It's not a free market, it's a price market. You say, this world has this stupid idea that a free market is where you go and pay, and then being free people is people that are forced to obey, huh? So y'all are all backwards and screwed up. And for 15 years, I've tried to say, it should be the human family instead of the human race, the gift of living instead of the cost of living. And people can't, in this reality, can't grasp that. Now, true humans, I think, can. whatever version of humanity this is, it's a simulated version, and they can't seem to grasp the idea or the truth of the gift of living in the human family. In the human race, I say this a bunch, but in the human race, you have winners and losers because it's a competition. People trying to stay ahead of the competition, trying to stay ahead of the bills, trying to stay ahead of each other, you know. And so you have winners and losers. But in the human family, everybody wins. But this world, they don't care about that. And I've done everything that I know to do. Um, and I have been shunned and rejected all along the way. I and I know that this is the reality that I was born to. I think what happened is I died, and someone captured my soul through some means of deception and put me into this reality, into a world that seems like the world that I was born into. But my earthly family has said things to me that my family could have never said. But these people here that seem to look and act and well, not act, but well, act is in the sense of not true, but look and seem and all like my family. Um, they can't act like my family. They can't put on the persona of my family because I guess they don't have it within their program. Um, so, and then people, the fact that humankind isn't sitting there going, oh, my gosh, why are we making each other pay to stay alive and pay not to suffer? Why don't we just make heaven? How humanity, at least billions of people in humanity, how billions of people aren't saying that and saying, wait a minute, government and religion and financial system, what have you done to us? You've turned us into monsters against each other. Um, that's a figure of speech, but you know, it's an appropriate uh, figure of speech because that's what people have done. They've become monsters. Um, you know. I don't know how. I mean, this is the worst possible way that you could design a society, a cost of living, um, legally binding agreements. That's bondage. It's all forms of bondage. There's financial bondage and legal bondage and uh, religious bondage and government bondage. Um, uh, Laws and ordinances, whether it's laws and ordinances of government or laws and ordinances of religion, and all these things to bind people instead of let people live lovingly to free each other. Here, I'm almost scared to free each other because then I free people because then I'm afraid that they'll say, oh well, he wants to free people, then let him freeze. Because he won't have heating fuel and stuff like that. He can't have a car because his car broke down, and his family for 3.5 months hasn't said a word to him about what's going on with the car. And so he's trapped without that. Even so, there's people that would like to force their rule on on him and everybody. And this is all wrong. Everything is wrong. I keep trying to do the same thing over and over again in different ways to get people to, uh, and knowingly, for the past several months, I kind of accepted the fact that, hey, wait a minute, this reality is maybe more of what Elon Musk says than he even realizes. Um, and if it's not a simulation, I would love for it to not be a simulation, except for the fact that would mean that people are evil. And that's even worse, you know. But in a way, maybe you could say, well, they've just all been deceived so much that they don't know good from evil, um, because they ate from a bad tree, the tree with three branches: judicial, legislative, and executive. You know, um, or uh, uh, church, state, and science. Um, three branches of uh, different religions. Um, church is one religion, state is another religion, and science is another religion. Um, and they all want you to believe things. I want you to believe things, not to not to experience it, just to believe it, just to think it and believe. That's a magic spell too. Anyways, be live, be lie, and then Eve at the end. So, or believe, like, do you believe God? Do you leave God? Do you believe him? Do you leave him? Do you go away from him? Do you believe God? Do you believe these things that people say? And so I've showed people how the alphabet A B C D, they they plant a seed in your in a thought in your brain, the seed of Abraham. It's a magic spell. That's why it's called spelling, and that's why Abraham, the first four letters of Abraham are Abra, for abracadabra, because it's magic spells. A, B, C, D. It's a seed of Abraham being planted, a seed of thought being planted in your brain, so that you will sacrifice your children to the financial system or to the military, so that you can have fields of sacrifice. Instead of just three crosses on a hill, you can have fields of crosses and death, and say, we're so proud of him, though. He sacrificed himself for our country, you know. And yeah, but your country is all, your country is just a corporation, And so why am I doing any of this? So, anyways, so I noticed that I make no difference and my life has no purpose. So, what the fuck am I doing? So, you know, you want a world of death and sacrifice? You know, I can't change that. I make no difference, and I'm in a fake world anyways. So, you know, it's just a manipulated reality. I know that it's manipulated. I know, I can see the times when I've been manipulated, and I could see that when somebody would do something very specific, and then a day or two later, or sometimes even just a few hours later, uh, they knew what I was going to be doing beforehand. So, um, you know, I feel like I don't want to do too much of this. I said that I was going to go and free people and see if that would work, even in a fake reality. Maybe it would, the people of the fake reality would get it. But that's just that's me moving the goalpost again, thinking that somehow it's going to make a difference. But it won't. It won't make a difference. The reason it won't make a difference is because it's a manipulated reality. And when I have gone to do things purposely for people as kindness, um, I call them people, but I don't think they are. Or folks or humans or whatever. I don't think they're any of that. I think they're just um, Simulations. Physical simulations. That's not the right word for it, but that's the word that we have, or that we were taught. And you know, I know that. Oh, maybe what you should do, Sandy, is write a new language. I don't want to do that. I mean, I would like to do it somebody, with somebody, but I don't think I would write a new language. I think it would only speak it. I don't know. You could write it, I guess, in the form of symbols for each word. Every word having a different, very different symbol from other words, but instead of spells. But I don't want to do it for this fake world of evil. For what purpose? I don't think it'll change anything. Um, I'm tired of fooling myself that I'm going to change something. My adoptive dad said one of the meanest things to me, but it in a true reality, in a true world, in a base reality, I guess is what you would call it. I don't like that word either, though. But in a true reality, um, uh, he could have never said that, and it would have never been true. But in this type of reality, yes. He said to me, "You're just one. You're just one guy. You can't change the world." Um, you know. So what I say to that is, fuck you, for saying such an awful thing, even if it is true. In this reality, it is true. That's twice I've cussed, and I don't like cuss. I don't like to cuss in my videos. I think it's not the best thing, but maybe sometimes it is a good thing. Um, and it is when you're done with this. I'm done with this stuff. I said I was going to go out and try and free people and see if that worked. I think I'm not going to do that. Now, I'm going to do maybe a few of them just because I gave my word to somebody, and so I'm going to at least go and do a kind thing for them. Um, and then I will, because it's a reality that feels and looks real. I will, while I'm doing that, I will probably feel like, ooh, I want to do this for a few other people. I've done that several different times, and it never made a difference. But but it did for their business, but it didn't for me, or didn't for the world, or any of that kind of stuff. Um, in the ways that I'm, you know. Anyways, so uh, so I will likely do that for a few places. Um, but then when I notice that um, my life hasn't improved again, and the world hasn't improved again, and that sort of thing, then I'm just done. And I'm not talking about I've improved my life um, in in fitness, um, but the world is not any better. Um, the reality is not any less fake. Uh, People still want to have animals sacrificed to them so that they can um, eat them and take their life from them, and destroy their families and stuff. They want that, um, and I live in a world of people that even after you hear somebody talk about that, well, people will just keep doing it anyways. Oh, the egg industry grinds up the baby chicks that are boys because they're not going to lay eggs. So they just throw them in a grinder alive. And then people will go to the store the next day and buy a dozen eggs and just be fine with it. Um, or they'll see documentaries of chicken farms with chickens inside these things where they buildings where they never see sunlight. They never enjoy a grassy field. They never enjoy running around, being chickens, or cows that live their all their life inside of a building, so that they can be milked for their milk, so that people can drink the milk from a cow, from another species of animal. They drink from another species of animal and subject the animals to an environment where they're inside all their life. They don't live free lives. Or they say, well, these cows here, they grow up on this beautiful farm. Look at the farm, all this green pasture and stuff. And they, we love them and we're kind to them when we put scratch and post out for them because they really like it. And then when they're a few years old, we bolt gun them in the head when they trust us the most. And then people will see documentaries about that and just go on about their lives like, oh, that's okay. Morality doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're taking a life that doesn't belong to us so that we can eat a hamburger. We could have Boca burgers. We could have that because those are plant-based. We could eat those. That would be fine. But no, we'd rather kill somebody's mother or father or kill their son so that we can have a steak or hamburger. We'd rather do that than have something that tastes just as good, if not better, and doesn't clog up your arteries with cholesterol. We'd rather participate in animal sacrifice. We'd rather have animals sacrificed to us. It makes us feel good. Good and evil, right? They feel good because of the evil. Good and evil people. And I'm not a preachy vegan, but I'm just done with all this stuff. Oh yeah, we would rather make our children be born into a financial system instead of making heaven so that they could be born in that. We would rather subject our children to the uncertainty of a financial system where they have to fight and struggle, and pay to stay alive and not suffer. We would rather our children pay to stay alive. We would rather them pay to not suffer, than to make the experience of living a gift for each other. We'd rather do that. This way, they'll have to take whatever job that they can get, even if it's not what they want, because they've got to be able to pay the bills. We'd rather have them live that life instead of having the free love experience of being able to find the work that they have a true passion and love for. Right? What we want is for them just to have to take a fucking job so that they can pay the fucking bills, so that they can not suffer, so that they can make sure that the corporations have what the corporation wants. And we'd rather do that. We would rather force our rule. We'd rather have our government force its rule on our children, whether they like it or not, because they were born into the system. We would rather have somebody like a government force rule against our children and force things upon them that they shouldn't have to suffer. We'd rather have that than make heaven. Why would we make heaven when we can force our kids to obey and we can force them to pay? Why make heaven? Why the fuck would we make heaven when we could do this awful fucking shit to our family? Why would we make heaven? So I think that I've really done don't want to keep doing this for a world of fake fucking people. I'm just done with all this stuff, you know. Oh, yeah, we would rather make our children be born into a financial system instead of making heaven so that they could be born in that. We would rather subject our children to the uncertainty of a financial system where they have to fight and struggle and pay to stay alive and not suffer. We would rather our children pay to stay alive. We would rather them pay to not suffer than to make the experience of living a gift for each other. We'd rather do that. This way, they'll have to take whatever job that they can get, even if it's not what they want, because they've got to be able to pay the bills. We'd rather have them live that life instead of having the free love experience of being able to find the work that they have a true passion and love for. Right? What we want is for them just to have to take a fucking job so that they can pay the fucking bills, so that they can not suffer, so that they can make sure that the corporations have what the corporation wants. And we'd rather do that. We would rather force our rule. We'd rather have our government force its rule on our children, whether they like it or not, because they were born into the system. We would rather have somebody like a government force rule against our children and force things upon them that they shouldn't have to suffer. We'd rather have that than make heaven. Why would we make heaven when we can force our kids to obey and we can force them to pay? Why make heaven? Why the fuck would we make heaven when we could do this awful fucking shit to our family? Why would we make heaven? So I think that I really don't want to keep doing this for a world of fake fucking people.